Hey, Godfather of Anxiety here. I feel like it's time to do a video about this, and my video today is going to be about anxiety, depression, and the effect or impact that social media can have on these mental health conditions. First of all, let me preface my video with the fact that I believe that social media can be positive. Media in general and social media can be a very positive thing when used correctly or for things that are actually relevant to our lives. It's, obviously I've started this channel on YouTube, and which is social media. And there's a lot of great videos, how-to videos. I could go on and on about the positive things that do exist on social media. So this video is not to just blanketly condemn social media and say that all social media is bad. I just wanted to get that out of the way so that, the rest of the video has the impact that it should. Because I believe that social media in general can have more of an impact and an influence than it should on people. But specifically, people with clinical depression or one of the anxiety disorders, one of the anxiety spectrum disorders, are especially vulnerable to the effects, the potential negative effects of social media. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through and list some of the potential pitfalls that and things, negative consequences that can occur to people who have depression and who have anxiety disorder on social media. The first thing that I'm going to mention is social comparison. So what does that mean? Well, we're looking at these images, these stories, these, people look healthy, they look vibrant, they're beautiful, they're having a great time, and we're doing this social comparison where, oh my gosh, that's what people's lives are like. My life must just be miserable. And the fact of the matter is, what you're looking at is at best a snapshot, and at worst a complete fabrication, a complete lie. I know so many people that will post a picture of, a picture where it looks like they're the perfect couple, and personally know that those people are either not being faithful to each other or are fighting at the time. So really, all we're putting out there on TikTok, I don't want to name different platforms, but all the different social media platforms, all we're putting out there is what we want people to see, a snapshot. And a lot of the time, it's a complete fabrication. Especially, okay, so I have a background in sports, and I was an athlete. So if I were to look at the bodies, the people's bodies that are on these social media accounts, or people, let's say people even in Hollywood, these are people that, number one, they're using filters. Number two, they have doctors, they have surgeons. Also, a huge amount of them are taking performance-enhancing drugs, way more than you would ever believe. And this is, well known in industries like that. But in order to, the people involved in those industries are going to say, well, I needed to get ready for a movie, or if you're I needed to promote my channel, and really what you're looking at, whether it's done with a filter or with AI, or whether it's done with drugs and surgery, it is not an accurate representation of what you can expect to look like if you engage in a healthy diet and exercise routine. And because of my background in athletics, it infuriates me when people are trying to sell some type of supplement or some diet routine or something ridiculous, and the person that's trying to sell it to you, I am 100% positive, is taking performance enhancing drugs. So you know that whatever they're selling you is a lie. And that's the problem with social media, right? If you have anxiety and depression and you look at these people and you see that they're, quote unquote, perfect looking, and it will make you feel like a failure, especially if you're clinically depressed. A lot of the times, your weight could either go up or, you could stop working out. You could feel terrible about yourself anyways. You're having all you can do to get out of bed. And then you're flipping through a social media account and you just see abs. You see people with perfect skin. You see, people having a great time. And guys, 99% of what you see is a fabrication. And like I said, at best, it's a snapshot. So if you're clinically depressed, that's one of the reasons that can have such an effect. Or it can also, my next point is going to be fear of missing out. That's the kind of thing that someone with anxiety can get when they're watching people on social media, have a great time. They're in these exotic locations. By the way, that could be some background that they produce in Canva or some other, AI generated thing. You don't even know nowadays. Some of the editing tools have gotten so good. You really can't trust anything. And you'll say, oh look, they're doing this. They're having all this great time, and here I have to work 9 to 5, and I never I can't afford a vacation. So, it can really pump up the anxiety. If you have generalized anxiety disorder already, it can elevate it. Another thing that happens, and this is another thing that infuriates me, is cyberbullying. So, the next 2 points here are kind of connected, just to different degrees and different extremes. Cyberbullying is especially, young people are especially vulnerable to cyberbullying. We have people 10 years old and younger committing, taking their own life. We have people, in their mid-teens taking their own life because people ganged up on them on social media, said terrible things about them on social media. What is wrong, first of all, with the people doing this? I never have been able to understand the troll mentality and the fact that you could drive somebody who's already maybe dealing with clinical depression to do something that there's no coming back from. Shame on those people. Shame on those people that are involved in that. There is no excuse, none whatsoever, to be cruel and harsh with people online. But because people can remain relatively anonymous, they feel free. It's like the wild, wild west on social media. People, some of the platforms are especially vulnerable to trolls and to people who are out there to either cyberbully or, really say terrible, horrible, negative things. And the shame of it is there's usually very little truth to it. And if you guys saw the person who's doing that, who's typing that in, you'd realize how pathetic and how pitiful they are as a human being. If somebody has a good life, they are not wasting their time trolling people on social media. So take solace in that. Anytime someone has trolled you, know that person has a miserable life. They are a pathetic human being and they have a miserable life. There's just no other personality type that would take the time out of their day to harass and put another person down. Now, here's another thing: negative content exposure. So, this is something that where I find this, also, I'm sure it's on many platforms, but let's say the comment section on YouTube. YouTube, like I said, very wonderful thing when used properly. So many awesome videos on YouTube. It's that there's a reason why I chose this platform to launch my channel. I really respect YouTube and a lot of the good things that it accomplishes. But if you have ever made the mistake of going into the comment section, especially on videos that have the tendency to polarize, you will find the cesspool, the very worst of humanity. You will find people that say things they would, again, never say in person to people, whether it has to do with gender, ethnicity, race, anything. It is the Wild West. People say things that, again, they would never say to the person's face. And again, these people, how pathetic and how weak do you have to be to hide behind a keyboard? Is there anything more pathetic than that? And like I say, they can't be saying these things in real life. I always think that maybe the people that you'll see a comment where somebody says something. Let's just pick a group because everybody gets attacked in the comments. But let's just say you hear it's supposed to be a guy anyways. You never know, right? It could be anybody running down women. Just saying horrible things about women. All women are this, that, or the other thing. Just terrible things. In my mind, I'm thinking, you know what? He is probably in a relationship with a woman who makes all the decisions for him, and he probably bows and caters to everything she says, and he uses, social media to vent about his inadequacies, his impotence, his, lack of strength as a human being. That's what's going on in my head. Insecure people do have a tendency to overcompensate, right? I think you can see that with choices in vehicles. Don't even get me going on it. But I think sometimes people wear their insecurity on their sleeve. And, I think at the heart of all those evil comments on, these social media platforms, are just some really insecure people. The thing is, this isn't, like I said, this video isn't about bashing social media. It's about being aware if you're clinically depressed, if you're clinically anxious. I would not spend time on social media on looking at controversial videos. And I definitely wouldn't spend time looking at the comment section of controversial videos that tend to polarize people. It's only going to infuriate you. It's going to aggravate your anxiety. It could make you lose all faith in humanity if you're clinically depressed. You don't need anything to push you any further into the abyss of depression. So, just wrapping up some of these things that you have to watch. We know that spending too much time looking at a screen because of the light, it can affect our sleeping patterns. It can make it difficult. It can mess up our circadian rhythm, and it can make it difficult to go to sleep. So that's another thing that is going to greatly exacerbate and worsen mental health issues, both anxiety and depression. I've mentioned all the time the big three, right? Sleep, exercise, and eating in a controlled way. And if you spend too much time looking at a screen, it's going to, believe me, it's going to affect your ability to get to sleep. I'm sure I'm not the only person who has started looking at something maybe somewhat meaningful, maybe I'm shopping for something or I'm looking for a gift or whatever, and you go down the rabbit hole and the sun is starting to come up and you're like, oh my goodness. So this is something you don't want, a pattern you don't want to fall into if you're clinically depressed or clinically anxious. Also, we do have a tendency, those of us with anxiety and depression, there is a tendency towards addiction. We love routines. Sometimes we're impulsive as well. So that can be another thing that, you know, we love routines, even bad routines. If we get in a routine where we're, you know, stirring ourselves up, looking at controversial videos or going through and looking at social media and just, you know, spending, you know, all day in front of a screen, it can become addictive, and that is not going to help you out with your mental health. Obviously, addiction is not healthy. You know, we all love things. We have things that we enjoy spending a lot of time doing. That's not addiction. Addiction is when you're doing it whether you want to or not, right? That's addiction. And you don't want social media or screen time to become that to you. You don't want it to start to run your life. So, you know, as I've mentioned, this is, you know, as a segment of society, as a demographic, people with anxiety and depression can be especially vulnerable because if you think about it, when you're depressed, you don't really want to go anywhere. If you're too anxious, you don't want to go anywhere. At times in my life, I've suffered from agoraphobia and I've been basically housebound. So these devices in the screen time can be something that is, you know, maybe the only thing we get to do that, you know, engages the senses at all. So, you know, that's why it can be especially insidious because it's easier than, you know, driving to the grocery store or going to a place where you're going to have to socialize with people. But some of the effects can be very counterproductive for people with anxiety and depression. Now, as I've mentioned to you guys, I always like to give solutions to problems. And let me first, again, go back to what I said in the beginning of my video. I'm not saying, you know, cold turkey, give up your device. Don't stop looking at social media. You know, you're never going to be able to get out of the cycle of anxiety and depression if you're going to look at a tablet or a phone or whatever. That's not true. And that's not balanced, right? But there are some things that you want to, some parameters that you want to put on your consumption of social media because you're in an especially vulnerable demographic to some of the negative effects of social media. So you are going to want to limit your screen time. You know, all these devices have timers. Time it. Most of us don't want to spend more than an hour or two looking at something. At that point, you know, especially as an adult with a job or children or responsibilities, you really start to feel like, oh, I'm wasting time. There's something else I should be doing, right? So set a timer. Also, if, you know, these algorithms are really keen on reading our facial expressions, and whether it's a really positive reaction or a really angry reaction, it sees that and it keeps spitting these into our feed. So that's why there might be something that you were strongly opposed to, but it keeps popping up, or something that you just don't like that keeps popping up in your social media. And it's because these algorithms, it's set up to it can even read your facial expression, the amount of time on the screen. Like, even if the device doesn't have a camera, if it knows you stopped at a certain place for a certain length of time, this all goes into it, and you're going to keep getting inundated with similar videos and similar, similar things. So if you get something in your feed that you don't like, either unfollow it. YouTube has features where you can make sure that it doesn't come back up in your feed, which I appreciate. Make sure you do that. Another thing, don't look at the comment section, especially certain videos. Like, you people out there with depression and anxiety, we tend to be very intelligent people. You know the videos that are going to be especially cruel or rotten when it comes to comments. Don't even bother going into those comments. And there's whole social media platforms that probably will be a good idea to stay away from. I'm not going to name anything specifically, but any place where things tend to get really ugly or really negative. You don't want to waste your time there, and you don't want to exacerbate your depression, exacerbate your anxiety by looking at the very weakest, lowest form of human beings on earth. Because that's all you're going to see in the comment section of controversial videos. Also, take breaks. That's another thing that's important. It goes right along with limiting screen time, but take breaks when you get a chance. And what's really important, and it's not just about taking breaks, it's about using your 5 senses. So as much good has happened with the advent of the internet and different, the way we can communicate with people across the world, there's a tremendous amount of really good things that have happened because of these electronic devices. But one thing that's gotten lost, and one thing that's really important and that you cannot get from an electronic device, is the engagement of the 5 senses and the true interaction with other human beings, right? You can get a form of interaction, people FaceTime, but real all 5 senses interaction with other people, guys, it's the way we're designed. And if you're depriving yourself of that, it's going to lay the groundwork for anxiety and depression to worsen. One of the keys to getting better, one of the keys to cognitive behavioral therapy, exposure therapy, is being able to interact with people again. Face-to-face interaction that involves all of the 5 senses. And what you'll notice, if you're a younger person and maybe you grew up with devices, right? See, that's not something I can empathize with. But what I do know, having seen both sides of it, is real life is better. When you engage all 5 senses, it's better. It's way better to be on vacation, on a boat, on a cruise, than it is to watch somebody smiling with abs and a filter on a cruise. Doing things with people that we love and who love us is so much more fulfilling and so much better than just watching something on a screen. So, and then always, if this has already gotten to the point, if you guys are already clinically depressed or anxious and you haven't already gotten help from a mental health professional, guys, do it. Don't delay. Get help. If you encounter somebody that maybe you're not getting the right vibes from, then try someone else. It will be worth it to get treated by a mental health professional. I promise you, because they're going to give you the specific tools that you need to get better. It may involve medication. It may involve cognitive behavioral therapy, exposure therapy, lifestyle changes. But they're going to be able to listen to you, see where you're at, and then tell you what adjustments you can make to your life or your lifestyle to get better. And that's what this is all about. We don't want to waste our lives being anxious or being clinically depressed. These things, that it's not real life. It's not you're missing out on so much. And I've been in both places, so I'm not just, talking about something I read about or something I've seen in another person. This is something I've been through. This has been, I've been dealing with this for about 22 years now, almost 22 years. And, it can be really tough. And, anyways, I made the video because social media is very powerful. And I want people to use it, especially people who would tune into my channel who are anxious and depressed. I want them to use it with certain parameters so that they know or so that they don't exacerbate their symptoms or drive themselves into a deeper depression, because of something as superficial as social media. It makes me sick to my stomach that we've lost people to, cyberbullying and people being clinically depressed and viewing social media and thinking their life is meaningless. That's tragic. Again, just to reiterate, what you're looking at is at best a snapshot of someone's life, and a lot of the time it's a total fabrication. And you should take it with a grain of salt. You don't watch a movie and then all of a sudden, have that affect your life because it was a movie, right? Trust me, social media, and a lot of, actually, unfortunately, in the day and age we live in, a lot of actual, even news media, there's a lot of fiction and propaganda thrown in there, depending on who owns the media, right? It's I digress there. But anyways, thanks so much for watching the video. Just want people to exercise caution on social media. Obviously, having a YouTube channel, I'm not telling people not to, and I know all of the good that can happen on social media as well. But thanks so much for the engagement. Hopefully everybody's staying warm. We're having a wonderful northeast winter storm right now, so hopefully you guys are staying safe out there. And until my next video, guys, take care.